Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1214, and today's date is February 26, 2017, and the title of the episode is More States Are Now Bypassing the Fed with Gold Legislation. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. In the past couple of months, we've heard many states come out and say that gold is money. We even had Greenspan out there saying that you should own gold as an insurance policy, and we can see that there are more and more states coming up with legislation to move that gold agenda forward. Now, the framers of our nation established that the gold and silver, well, they're money, but federal taxing authorities in recent decades have required taxpayers to pay taxes on this form of money when it exchanged for the Federal Reserve notes, which results in nominal capital gains. But that problem may soon completely disappear, and we can see states like Utah, Texas, Arizona, they're passing legislation. Now, there's another state out there, Idaho, and a state representative has advanced legislation to remove state income taxes when Idaho taxpayers sell their precious metals. House Majority Leader Mike Moyle introduced House Bill 206 on February 23rd to amend Idaho's revenue statutes, providing the capital gains and losses on precious metals bullion and monetized bullion sales be added to or subtracted from Idaho taxable income. Similar to a bill recently passed by Arizona State House, Idaho's HB 206 is a pure and tax-neutral proposal. That's because both precious metal gains and losses are backed out of the calculation of one's Idaho taxable income. And by removing precious metals from the state income tax, Idaho can stop compounding the problem, instead help promote the adoption and widespread use of constitutional money. And we can see right now that there are many financial pundits, many states that are looking at the situation right now and realizing that we need real money. We need real money to protect ourselves against the fiat currency system. Now, out in Zimbabwe, we see that the U.S. dollar is disappearing from their banking system. And when we look at this, we see that transactional activity in Zimbabwe in recent weeks indicates a slow disappearance of the United States dollar, which is being replaced by bond notes. Now, the bond notes were introduced last year under the $200 million export incentive to supplement dwindling dollar supplies due to weak exports. Now, there was a time in the past where they would go to ATM machines and banks and things like that, where they would receive U.S. dollars and bond notes, and now most of the people in Zimbabwe are saying they're not even finding dollars anymore. They're just receiving the bond notes instead of U.S. dollars. Now, Starbucks was out there, and with this whole entire immigration agenda, Starbucks came out. CEO Howard Schultz, he decided to take the stand in defiance of Trump's immigration executive order. And he went out there and he said that they're going to be hiring 10,000 refugees over the next 5 years to build bridges, not walls, with Mexico. Well, unfortunately, Schultz quickly found out the hard way that while most Americans can agree they like the coffee, roughly 50% disagree with his political opinions. And according to Yahoo Finance, well, it looks like brand perception is in a downward spiral. And there was a poll done by YouGov called Brand Index, and you can see at the point where he announced this, well, things dropped off dramatically. Now, at the same time, when Starbucks announced hiring immigrants, Black Rifle Coffee said, well, instead of doing what Starbucks says, we're going to hire veterans, people who fought for this country, Americans who fought for this country. And when I look at what Starbucks says, why don't they hire Americans that don't have work? So they're bypassing Americans that are looking for jobs, and instead they're going to hire immigrants who are just coming into this country. And I can see why the perception of Starbucks has declined since that announcement, because it makes no sense in what they're trying to push here. Now, on college campuses, we see there is a certain agenda within the college structure. Adam Steinberg of the Washington Examiner has been investigating different colleges, and he's found that administrators are encouraging students to snitch on each other. and their professors, not to expose criminal behavior or cheating, no, nothing like that, but to target inappropriate speech. He found that 230 colleges have what are called bias response teams, which are made up of either campus cops or administrators whose sole job is to investigate mostly anonymous claims of offensive speech. And as you might expect, these schools define bias in extremely vague and subjective terms. The students and professors who are ratted out are usually reprimanded by administrators and forced to endure conversations of the civil rights movement and how their words hurt others. Now again, freedom of speech, well, you could say whatever you want. And if someone is offended, well, they're offended. They might speak out and say, yes, I'm offended, but you cannot stop the person from saying it. Because once you stop the person from saying it, well, then you're permitting speech. It's not free. And guess what? Something that offends one person might not offend another. But that's the whole purpose of free speech. To say what you're feeling, to say what's on your mind, to speak out against the authorities, to speak out against the government. And once people are out there telling you can or cannot say certain words, you can or cannot say certain phrases, it might hurt someone, well, now you're controlling speech. And this is what colleges are doing today. This is what they're teaching our young. And if we look back in time, you can see how things are dramatically changing, where everyone on a baseball team wins a trophy. There are no losers. And when real life happens and there is a loser, well, that individual breaks down. Think about bowling. They put up the side panels so the kid can never get a gutter ball. Well, in life, there are gutter balls. It does happen. And we can see by protecting the youth and not letting them experience hearing certain things, losing, well, we're setting up a generation of individuals that will not be able to handle real life scenarios. And when a real life scenario is thrown at them, they'll completely break down. And that's actually what we're seeing today. Now, out in North Korea, we understand that Kim Jong-un's half-brother was murdered. Now, North Korea, they are looking at the situation. The United States is looking at the situation. The Malaysian police are looking at the situation. And they arrested a woman, Siti Aisyah, an Indonesian woman. Well, she is being held in Malaysia for poisoning Kim Jong-un's half-brother. Now, she is out there saying that she got paid $90 for the attack, which she believed to have been a prank. And this is what she said, that somebody asked her to do this activity. She only said in general she met with some people who look Japanese or Korean. She doesn't really know. And the Malaysian police say that the baby oil was in fact the VX, a powerful poison classified by the UN as a weapon of mass destruction, which is prohibitively expensive and mostly manufactured in state-sponsored military facilities. Now, she didn't show any signs of problems handling the poison, which is strange in itself. And then we have to ask the question, why all of a sudden did North Korea want to kill Kim Jong-un's brother? Why now? Why publicly to be seen worldwide on videotape? Think about this for a second. Who had motive and opportunity to kill him? If North Korean authorities wanted him eliminated, why did they wait so long? Why a public execution, making it easy for its detractors to automatically lay the blame on North Korea? Does that make any sense? And then we also find out that there are reports that indicate North Korea planned sending its foreign ministry director of U.S. affairs to lead a delegation with the U.S. And on the U.S. side, former Carter Official National Committee on American Foreign Policy Senior Vice President Donald Zagoria, a former Clinton 1994 chief denuclearization deal negotiator Robert Gallucci, they were also involved. And now, after this has happened, the whole thing's been called off. There's no meeting. So when we look at the chemical weapon that was used, what do we see? Well, VX is a toxic substance. 10 milligrams of the oily liquid on your skin, less than a drop, is lethal. But Kim took some time to show any symptoms while the poison was handled by unprotected assailants and didn't contaminate other people. Strange in itself. the use of the chemical narrows the list of suspects. Thinking about this, how many people can develop or have this VX agent? Because it's easy to make, but the precursor chemicals are tightly controlled. The International Crisis Group, this think tank, estimates that North Korea has chemical weapons, and they might have the VX poison. Now, again, there's no proof here, but just listen to what they're building up to. Now, they're claiming that North Korea helped Syria build up its chemical weapons, which included VX. Now, they don't know this for sure. This is what they're guessing. It's all hypothetical, but they're building this narrative story. Now, this VX, which is a nerve agent, inhibits the acetylcholinesterase enzymes, which breaks down the acetylcholine, the chemical that transmits the signal to the contract from nerves to muscles. If acetylcholine does not break down, muscles stay helplessly contracted and victims die of paralyzed breathing. They also go into convulsions, they foam from the mouth, they turn blue, and there are other symptoms that go along with this. Now, Kim himself is said to have reported liquid smeared on his face that burned his eyes when he went to the airport. Well, this is why when the corporate media is out there reporting, this is why he couldn't see. Now, the attacker was handling a cloth with no apparent protection, not wielding a syringe. Then the report says, and this is coming from the corporate media, they went into the bathroom and they quickly washed their hands. Well, they already would have touched the liquid. I mean, it would have already gotten onto them. But they've shown no signs or symptoms or anything. When Kim Jong-nam was put into the ambulance, they didn't know what it was. They were touching his face. They were touching none of the ambulance individuals. Well, they didn't have any symptoms whatsoever, which is kind of strange. So, yes, the attackers, maybe they were pre-treated with atropine, a drug that blocks the effects of VX. Okay, we'll rule them out. But the medical staff who handled Kim, they wouldn't have been pre-treated with this because they had no idea what was going on with him. And he was missing certain telltale signs, symptoms of the VX nerve agent, which is all strange in itself. Now, the question is, who has the VX agent? Well, US and Russia. These are the only countries that have admitted owning VX stockpiles. But there could be other countries that have it, but just haven't admitted it. But it's very hard to make because you can't find the precursor chemicals. But this whole thing was a complete setup for pushing a certain agenda. That is to basically stop the meeting with the US and North Korea about denuclearization. They don't want that to happen. Plus, it's setting up North Korea to have chemical weapons because already South Korea came out to raise the issue of North Korea's chemical weapons program, and they're using it. And they're bringing this to the UN. It sounds very similar to Syria, where they went to the UN and Syria has chemical weapons. They built this story up. It looks like they're using the same narrative now on North Korea. And we know that China has pulled back. They stopped importing the coal from North Korea, which is going to damage the economy of North Korea. And we can see at this point that the squeeze is on right now. Because we know for a very long time, the United States government central bankers, they want a regime change inside of North Korea. And it looks like this is what they're pushing, and hopefully they can get some type of war out of this. Now, a top U.S. general secretly visited Syria and Washington to dispatch more troops. Now, General Votel, he visited Syria right after McCain. Remember, McCain went to Syria, which is actually in violation of the Logan Act. He is a senator. He is not part of the executive branch. He doesn't have permission to go over to Syria, but we can see he was out there checking up on the Islamic State, checking up on the moderate rebels, casing out what has been done there and what the strength is of these paid mercenaries, these terrorists. And we can see right now that the general is out there looking at the same thing because they want to bring in troops because they realize the paid mercenaries, well, they're done for. And the only way to get Assad out is to bring troops in. Iraqi popular forces are saying, well, we have evidence that the U.S. right now is trying to evacuate the Islamic State commanders from the Iraqi city right outside Mosul, because we know what's happening in Mosul. There's a huge offensive going on, and the Iraqi forces and the U.S. forces, they're taking back Mosul. And it looks like the Islamic State commanders moved out of Mosul. They're in a town, Tal Afar, which is around Mosul, and the U.S. is trying to get the Islamic State commanders out of the area. So we can see what is happening right now. The U.S. is still covertly supporting the Islamic State. We see troops want to be brought into Syria. And while all this is going on, we have the assassination of Kim Jong-un's brother, where it's being blamed on North Korea and North Korea having chemical weapons. So we can see where all this is headed right now. And we can see that they're pushing their agenda, trying to reach their goal of removing Assad, getting us into war. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.